This is Off the Court with OG. I'm your host, Kristian Cuaresma. We cannot thank you enough for stopping by the official show of Nets Gaming Crew, the NBA 2K League affiliate of the Brooklyn Nets. Each and every episode, we're joined by the team's general manager and head coach, OG King Curt. But before we bring Curt on, let's show some love to our friends over at Zenny Blocks. Make sure to armor your eyes with Zenny Blocks virtually clear blue blockers. Whether you're streaming your favorite TV shows or your favorite video games, we know you're spending hours in front of a screen. So it's important to protect your eyes from any harmful blue light. Zenny Blocks will not only reduce eye strain, but also improve your sleep. That way you can keep your eyes on the prize, which is making the NBA 2K League for Season 5. Check them out on zenny.com/gaming and follow Zenny Gaming on Twitter and IG. Make sure to also follow Nets Gaming Crew on all social media platforms. And without further ado, episode 15 starts now. All right, episode 15 of Off the Court with OG, brought to you by Zenny Blocks. Curt, by the time this show airs, we'll be right in the thick of the Season 5 NBA 2K League Combine. As a general manager who has been through this process before and has gone through this cycle several times now, Curt, walk us through that process from the perspective of a general manager. What's involved? What does the structure look like? What does your day look like during that?
Yes, I mean, it's actually, kind of my favorite time of the year, because you get to a point where you get all the players who've qualified through the league qualifiers. You're seeing the players that's potentially going to be draft eligible. So that's when it really gets critical for me. I mean, it's a lot of talent out here, but you don't really get the full picture to see who is going to be available until they make it to that phase. So it's very important. For me, my method is pretty simple. I'll be watching each and every game. I have eyeballs on every game that, not only myself, but there's no secret. I use my players, to my benefit. They're talented. They know who can play. They know what we need. They know what they need to look for in fulfilling those needs. So I don't hesitate to use my players. And obviously, I have a scout that does a great job in retrieving information and giving great input. So I think collectively, it'll just be an all-day process throughout that week in trying to fulfill the positions that we need. I think it's a time where, unfortunately for the players, I mean, it could be very stressful, and trying in hopes of getting drafted and things of that nature. But definitely, if you thrive off competition, it should be your moment to shine and prove that you belong in the league.
See, on previous shows, we've heard you talk about, what you're looking for from players as they try to separate themselves, not only in these draft tournaments that we've been seeing play out, but with also their brands. You've talked about what they need to do when it comes to their content and their social media presence. But looking at it using the lens of the combine, like, just how important are these combine performances? And what do you look for when watching these games? Or is it like, do you take comms into consideration as well?
Oh, without a doubt. I think one of the, I wouldn't say underrated, but I don't think a lot of people look at it as much as they should. But, the communication from player to player is important, because there are moments where you hit a rut in the league where the season starts to wear on you and everything like that, but you need that constant energy throughout each and every day of practice and each and every night for games. So that's definitely critical. Now, it's players out here who are very talented, but don't talk a lot. Like, you have different type of communicators. You have your constant communicators throughout the game. Then you have some who speak a purpose, when necessary. And then you have some who don't talk at all. It's more about their play speaks louder than any words that could come out of their mouth. So it's all different types of player, but you definitely need some players like that to keep the energy going throughout each and every day and each and every night. Yeah, that's definitely going to be something to look for. I mean, also just seeing who thrives under the big lights. I mean, because this is pretty much the last phase
Right.
before you get a chance. Now, obviously, there's some big time amateur tournaments going on before the actual draft, but this is a moment where everybody's going to key in on. We changed the system uh, since the league's first season. So each and every year, things change. You have to be adaptable and be ready for those changes. And I think the more adversity we can see players fight through, then we'll realize what type of person and type of player that we're actually getting if we draft that player.
I want to sneak one more combine question and then maybe one final question after that before we clock out, Curt. But you know how we do things here. We want to make sure we reach the biggest audience possible when talking about the combine. Obviously, the goal is to win your combine games. It's as simple as that. But unfortunately, there will always be just as many losers as there are winners that come out of this. So what advice would you have for players who are on the wrong side of the contest in these combines and they're maybe trailing by 10 to 15 plus points? What can they do to maybe negate the loss a little bit?
It's interesting you asked that question because I feel like I'm the perfect GM to answer this question to a degree, because in my first season, I had the team that I had drafted primarily. None of those players came from winning, quote unquote. Not the majority of them didn't come from winning pro-am teams or, outstanding combine performances to that nature. So, um, it's really about, of course you go out to compete in hopes to win, but if you don't, you still have to put forth the best performance that you can do, that you can put out there. I think that should always be a known, because you're not always guaranteed to win every time you hit the floor. I mean, that's even when you make the league. I mean, you still have the obligation of being able to compete at the highest level that you can and perform well. So it's one of those things where, yes, winning is important, but also individual performances is important as well. I'm not going to say that they supersede winning, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to prove what you can do, whether it's in victory or whether it's in defeat.
One final question before we conclude things here on episode 15 of Off the Court with OG. The topic of discussion on especially NBA, the 2K Twitter community, is the recent patch that was released by NBA 2K and their developers. And it primarily affects the point guard position. Obviously, Nets Gaming Crew looking for a point guard in this year's draft. But now a lot of the movement that these point guards were so accustomed to using, and maybe some depending on entirely, they don't have access to that full bag anymore. I was hoping to get maybe your thoughts about this patch and how it kind of changes the dynamics of everything, not just for Nets Gaming Crew, but for each and every single team across the league. Because now, with the combine coming up, it's can these guards adapt and change to their new environment? What were your thoughts on that?
Yes, I mean, it's always it's never a dull moment in the NBA 2K community, and its game. I think it goes in a lot of different directions. I mean, for one, for me, if I were a casual player, things of that nature, I probably wouldn't take to it as much. But being a competitive,
Right.
being on the competitive side of things, I can understand the frustration. But at the end of the day, what you gonna do? I mean, it's either you gonna adapt to it and compete, or you gonna cry about it and get worse. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only so many things you can do if you're not able to make the changes that you feel would be best for the game. So you have no choice but to be able to fight through it, adapt to it. And then I think I've read on certain Twitter posts, is like, you learn how to utilize the other four players on the court if you feel limited. I think the one thing that we'll see more of than anything for this current moment is that, how point guards utilize everybody on the floor and still be able to be productive. I think in this day and age in basketball, we kind of getting away from the traditional point guard role. So it does put you back into the traditional point guard role if you're not able to move how you used to move and being more freestyle. Because I always say the era that we live in now is more of a combo guard. It's the point guard role is pretty much out the window. I felt like in the league, it's only been a few like setup guys. Like most of them they score first, pass second. It's been a few great passers, with the Fabs, Dimes in his earlier career. Chalk obviously is one of the best to ever do it. You just look at throughout the league, it's more scoring. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say CB13 is one that he does it, and he doesn't even always score over 20 points most of the time in games, and still leads his team to victory. So it's you still have some traditional setup guys, but more or less it's all about being able to score. And I think this patch has limited the movement that allows them to be able to do that. But you have to show what you're really made of and be able to do it each and every way you can and still help your team win. I think for us, especially when we're looking at newer and upcoming talent, you want to see how they handle adversity because that's not even the tip of the iceberg of, making a league and that day-to-day grind and the pressures of winning and everything like that. That's only a small portion of it. So, I can understand the frustration, but at the end of the day, 2K is going to do what it does, and you just have to be ready to make the adjustments and compete. I mean, I think as a whole in the 2K community, we have to be. You can't say you're competitive and cry about every challenge, and I'll leave it at that.
Perfectly said. And man, it's not just during these tournaments. It's not just during the combine. The audition is happening at all times for these prospects as we inch closer and closer to the NBA 2K League draft. Curt, that wraps things up for us here on Off the Court episode 15, only 5 episodes away from our 20th anniversary show. Thank you to everyone who took the time to listen and keep up with NetsGC and Curt. As always, man, I appreciate you for taking the time out of your schedule to talk some 2K with us.
No doubt. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Catch you next episode.
One final shout out to Zenny Blocks. Make sure to check them out. Also follow Nets Gaming Crew on all socials. We're getting closer and closer to the NBA 2K League Season 5 draft. On behalf of everyone over at NetsGC, I'm Kristian Cuaresma, and this was Off the Court with OG.